Direct from Foxborough, Massachusetts, the gem of Norfolk County, and taped at the studios of Foxborough Cable Access. It's Foxborough Central, and here's your host, Bob Hickey.
You heard the man. Welcome to another great episode of Foxborough Central. My name is Bob Hickey. I am your host as we talk today about not only the people, places, and events that make Foxborough the gem in Norfolk County, but something that might happen quickly, called a hurricane. You've heard about them, you've seen them. Any of us who enjoyed, and I put that in quotes, Tropical Storm Irene as it came roaring through. Also, for those of us who saw the devastation and participated in relief efforts and were touched in any way by Hurricane Sandy that came through, devastating the East Coast, or who have been through any of the other ones, Katrina, Hugo, going back to the day of the Hurricane of 38. All of these events happen, and they're going to happen again. So what do we here in Foxborough do about it? Do we ignore it? Do we put our head in the sand? Do we think it's never going to happen again because, hey, Bob in 91 was just a little blow? Trees grow, power lines come down, but a hurricane will be here at some point. I'm joined today by Joe Relanitis, who is our regional publicity director of the Food and Drug Administration. I'm going to make up a title because you are so well spoken. You come in with such interesting topics, and I'm really glad to have you here today to talk about hurricane preparedness.
It's a good message, Bob, and I appreciate you inviting me in. I happened to stop at your main desk on the way through and got this little refrigerator magnet about emergency notification and awareness and contact information.
And of course, your local Foxborough Cable Access channel that you're watching today, and also Channel 8 or 39, will have all sorts of public community updates when they happen as part of the local emergency response preparedness initiative. But we're not talking about locally, we're talking about...
It's a big picture. From August to, I think, late November, we are in the hurricane season. As we both know, being native New Englanders, sometimes you get hit, sometimes you don't, but they'll always come back at you. There's no doubt about it. You know, you and I are both historians. You look back to the 1700s, 1765, like the great colonial hurricane.
Yes.
Huge Category 5 hurricanes that killed hundreds of people, flooded wetlands, destroyed crops, and then they popped up, you know, dynamically every 15 or 16 years. You'd get another one in the 1860s, 1880s, and you mentioned the famous Hurricane of 38 that people are still talking about.
Yes.
So we get them. We get them. And you know what? That's a given. And what should also be a given would be just some basic awareness of food safety, drug safety, even pet medication and pet plans for everybody, because the FDA regulates these items that touch your pets and of course your food and your drugs. I wonder, and here's a question for the morning, how many of your folks that are watching today have a go bag or food set aside for at least 72 hours? The old cliche now is the first 72 are on you in a major hurricane or weather-related situation.
I'm going to answer that, and I don't know how you at home are going to answer it, but I do not have a go bag. In fact, I do not have a reasonable expectation I even know what a go bag is, although I'm pretty sure it has something to do with being prepared for a hurricane.
Jargon, you know, you're right. Well,
and you say 3 days, 72 hours, and that's because when Irene came through, it was 5 days while we were out of power.
Correct.
And then when the ice storm hit, also, we all remember that was another 5 days before we were fully powered back up. So this is not a joking matter. It's not a scenario that's uncommon to those of us in the Foxborough area.
No, it's not.
3 days it's realistic.
Being generous, right. And it's not that hard nowadays. I mean, there are catalogs, there are internet sources, there are stores that sell freeze-dried food in preparation for emergencies. It's always good. It lasts 1,000 years. Diverse menu, it's there. Water is all around us in the bottled water industries that the FDA regulates. It's not hard to put away 3 or 4 days of food, enough caloric intake for every individual in your family, 2,000 calories, whatever the case might be, per person for 4 or 5 days. Find a storage area, buy one of these plastic crates, you see them all over the place at your retail outlets, pack the food, pack the water, put it on in the basement floor in a safe, dry area, or in the attic, or a room where you can get to it safely, and keep it. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to do you a lot of good if, as you mentioned, an ice storm comes through or a hurricane puts out the juice and restricts us from traveling for 4 or 5 days. You need to think ahead, and you need to prep, from a caloric intake for any emergencies. And then it also brings us to medication. Well, there are people that need medication periodically, daily, whatever the case might be. It's good to have your prescriptions ready, know where your prescriptions are if you have to leave your house, or if you can, safely store medications for a rainy day, no pun intended, for a wind-blown, stormy day with the electricity down.
Now I'm going to interrupt you there. That's a tough one because
It
with
is.
insurance funding these days and with controls in place, it's hard to have, I'll speak from my limited experience, coordinating medication for summer camp for Boy Scouts. It's hard to get a second bottle with a week's supply of medication.
Quite true.
But at the same time, it is possible if you explain what the issue is, and pharmacists are usually happy to comply. How difficult is this, and how reasonable is it to do?
Well, it's tricky from a lot of different standpoints. You mentioned, the insurance coverage. Who pays for you stocking up on certain medications that you always need and will need really badly in an emergency. So that becomes a letter from your doctor, or I don't know if towns have form letters, justifying storing medication. I don't really know that. Things like insulin, which are temperature sensitive, they have to be kept cold.
You can't keep it.
That's correct.
You have
That's
to keep
correct.
that.
It's harder to do that, keeping medicine on stock, Bob, than it is food. But it's worth the try. It's worth the consideration. You mentioned a go bag, and I'll segue into that. Go bag is merely a small bag, a satchel, whatever the case might be, that you can put in your car in a hurry if you and the kids and the wife have got to leave and relocate to a hotel, a motel, or evacuate up country or out west to get away from a major, Category 5 storm. That's just a portable supply for a day or so.
And I imagine a checklist would also be good with that. For things like insulin and things that as
that's
you're running
correct.
out the door, what should you take with you? Don't forget.
That's great. I wish I'd brought one with me.
Do you have them on the www.fda.gov website?
You'd have to search for them. You might, do / emergency weather checklist, emergency weather supplies. Search for it. It's worth a search.
I have looked at your website.
Okay.
Again, www.fda.gov. It's a robust site. There's a ton of information
You're
in there.
being nice.
Oh, no, it is an interesting site. I really enjoy going through it, and it's something that is a resource.
It is.
But it doesn't take away from preparedness.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. You got to dedicate yourself to this. I mean, families are important, and so are pets. Pets are part of families too. You've got to figure in the equation water and food for a pet. Where are you going to store a pet if you're going to a non-pet friendly hotel or evacuation area? You need to know where your pet is safe. A tragedy is a tragedy, no matter how you look at it. And losing an animal that you love, that's been part of the family for a long time, is never a good part of anything. So, responsible adulthood, you and I both know, is an interesting concept. Understanding, doing important, great programs like this. And I love coming here because you give me a place to stand and get a message across, and the rapport we have is really good. But you've got to prepare for these things. I mean, again, we'll have bad weather, snow. We'll have a major hurricane. We have tornadoes periodically. We'll have those.
Knock on wood, we won't.
I'm
We will.
hoping. Yes, I'm seriously knocking on wood, Robert. I really am. But it's an emergency is a bad thing. It's worse if you're not prepared. It's really bad.
So another interesting thing that happened, or one of the takeaways, in addition to FCA's great, and Michael Weber and Lauren Bitar were always on the spot with the updates from our emergency coordinator here in Foxborough, Chief Roger Hatfield, the fire department, and Chief O'Leary with the police department, and of course town manager and selectmen getting involved with getting the message out. But in addition to Foxborough Cable Access, when the power goes out, our power goes out for television. So our message is also out there on the webpage, fcatv.org, but so is a message from in our town, and I'm sure many other towns, but we have a reverse 911 system where the police and fire will send out a reverse 911 call to homes and tell them. But some takeaway that was rather interesting was that those of us, and I'm included, who no longer have the old Ma Bell telephones with the rotary dial.
Sure.
We have all wireless now. Well, when the power goes out, your telephone goes out. People said, well, we didn't get a call. Well, the reason is because we, as homeowners, made the decision, beautiful weather here, that we don't need a corded phone anymore. Well, maybe we do.
Landlines do have their place.
They do
especially
indeed.
in emergencies.
And then, of course, we come to recharging cell phones, and cable access, of course, has a Facebook presence, and there's opportunity to learn of issues through that site. The town of Foxborough has a website, but of course, if the power goes out, that goes down as well.
Sure.
But without basic communication, there's a void.
The preparation's on you.
So the preparation's
It
on
is.
you.
And you mentioned a really good point that I'd forgotten. When electricity goes out, there goes your refrigeration. Now, returning after several days with a down refrigerator, you got to realize that there's going to probably be spoilage of the food in your freezer and in the regular basic body of the refrigerator. So you've got to take a real careful look, especially if you're in the retail business and you're selling food. You've got to take a responsible look at spoilage and how long things last. And you can go on our website at www.fda.gov and look up, food spoilage time chart.
How long will a
Exactly.
gallon of milk last?
Milk is gone as soon as you bring it home, anyways. But it's a tough thing. Dry cereal's rough without that milk. But you have to understand that food goes bad over a period of days, and understand that if you keep a refrigerator sealed, you can hold some of the cold for a couple days, but eventually you're going to have to just sort of look at what goes and what stays and make the right decision there too.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's important.
So the FDA, in a moment of crisis, what is the response opportunity, or what does the FDA do to support localities or to support people in hurricane response?
We're pretty proactive. We really are. FEMA, MEMA, and the state and federal emergency response agencies have a real priority. We do our work prior to. Outreach like this is totally wickedly valuable to what we do, really, really important. But we make sure that we talk in schools about proper food storage, about emergency evacuation prior to. Our big thing is being proactive and wanting folks beforehand. We can go out, and we do go out after disasters and do inspections at food companies, pretty big into the food thing. We have the Public Health Service. Those are our uniformed members who do a lot of the response to, like Katrina and Irene. They go to devastated areas and work in bringing those areas back up and functional. So we do have a bit of a footprint in emergency response, but a lot of it is done prior to, Bob. It's just getting the word out, trying to enhance common sense, common awareness, and having people prepare prior to an emergency so that they can get through it safely.
So today's episode of Hurricane Preparedness, the message is prepare. Prepare as if it's going to happen. Flashlights, medication, pet food, and enough of the supply for 72 hours for yourself and your family, as well as knowing where you're going to go. So it's not a big surprise. When the hurricane comes and when the storm comes and the ice storm hits, it's a time to act on your plans, not to create the plans.
Well
and
said.
I remember back in the day when we were doing fire evacuation for our homes. All right, we're going to meet by the elm tree on the corner, or we're going to meet by the flower pot by the driveway.
Sure.
You got to have a plan in place.
An evacuation plan, yeah, and an assembly place. It's just accountability. It brings peace of mind. It's safety driven. There's no doubt about it. And you're right. Flashlights are so important. Living in a hurricane is tough, but living in the dark in a hurricane is truly a difficult thing. It's just.
Now, many folks have talked about generators and battery operated this and that. But that doesn't take away from being prepared and having a plan in place. So no matter what your plan is, you got to have it well thought out. And the plan can't be going next door to the neighbors, because if the hurricane's hitting my house at 14 Baker, pretty sure it's going to hit 16 as well.
No doubt. It saturates an area. It's a wide, very wide disaster coming up from up the coast. Yeah. So you really do, a generator is a great thing, but if you can't get out, you can have all the light and heat you want. But if you're hungry and you can't get to a grocery store and you don't have anything more than half a loaf of bread and some peanut butter in the cupboard. Exaggerating here,
Sure.
You're going to need to feed your family.
But I think no exaggeration. We only have 1 minute left, Joe, and I appreciate you so much coming down from the Worcester office to talk to us about hurricane preparedness. But people, I think, are under, even with the 2 issues that happened in Foxborough recently with the ice storm and with Irene, that was an inconvenience. That was just no power. Sandy devastated an entire community, an entire city was underwater, still recovering from the effects. And with that type of total devastation, it's not a matter of power being out, it's a matter of evacuating. So your plan has to be, or has to include, everything.
It does. Evacuation, gas in the tank, the go bags that you and I talked of early.
Because you may really have to go.
Oh, you really do. You need to know where you're going to go. You need to know where the evacuation routes. And I'm sure Foxborough, a highly sophisticated, well set up establishment, has all this down somewhere in the town government.
Well, we do have a very robust CERT program. It's a community response. It used to be called FEMA back in the day.
Okay, yeah.
But they changed it to CERT to be in compliance with, I'm sure, post 9/11 regulations. So, Joe Relanitis with the Food and Drug Administration.
Bob, thank you.
Thank you for taking a little bit of time to come out and talk to us about hurricane preparedness and knowing what to do in time of crisis. If you'd like more information on this or any other program for Foxborough Central, check us out at fcatv.org or watch again on your favorite FCA TV channel. Until next time, folks, have a great day.